beginning to talk to you about this book I've been working on, and I've been working on it for a long time. Honestly, it's hard to really even know when I started this thing. Um, it's weird. I can tell when my brain is like firing up, and I'm kind of like getting momentum with when I do these things. Um, Usually, I like to do this in, I don't know, towards the end, like when I'm like done, is when I'm actually like when I'm ready to start. Like my brain is like, okay, we're doing this now, and I'm like, well, and I'm ending. But so there's been inside me for a long time, a perspective of the world that I've been kind of I've started to walk through with you guys, kind of the formation of it. And even though my origin story is really interesting, I think to talk about, where I'm at right now, as a writer is different from, well, it's kind of different from, I guess, kind of, there's a, there's a breakdown, I would say, between what I'm wanting to communicate as a writer versus what I'm communicating as a podcaster. There's overlap, but as a writer, I really want to deliver something that's very, very in tune with what I think people enjoy hearing, but also need to hear. And finding that challenging message that really resonates with people, but also engages them. I think the perfect way of educating ourselves and each other, I think, is often finding that place where we're challenged, but we're also, I guess, entertained, kind of into it, I mean, I feel like sometimes the greatest form of education is, I don't know, subjects and documentaries and podcasts that we're not even aware that we're learning. We're so enraptured in the process of whatever topic we're learning about that sometimes the deepest form of learning that we do and are engaged in, it's not conscious learning. It's unconscious learning. It's things that we are just excited to know, and we find later on that we know so much from the references of things that we found just entertaining to us and engaging. And so for me, I've been trying to find a way of communicating aspects of mental health and spirituality that I feel like really resonate with people and are exciting to talk about. And this particular book was something that I started in 2020 and started down kind of one lane and kind of like hit a dead end. And then I had to start all the way over. And then kind of next year, kind of the same thing. I mean, it was like, it just seemed like every time I was moving forward with ideas, it's like I would get a lot of really good ideas and they would kind of end. And anyway, after that happening a bunch of times, I finally found a direction to communicate from that I feel like really gets at the core of the matter, and I feel like, recently I did a podcast. It was kind of recent, not really recent. I guess it was months back actually, for Mother's Day. I was talking about how mothers are the seers of the world and how they give us value. How as we come into this world and as we have eye contact and connection with our mothers, there's a sense of value placed on us, and that connection with value, with being seen, is really the foundation of so much in this world. Maybe the foundation of it to be, it's the foundation of it, honestly, the foundation of civilization. But I would say that it's not purely like a mother baby or a father baby, a parental kind of thing. This is where the idea of God being kind of a parental figure comes into play. But there's also overlap with, there's a breakdown that sometimes that doesn't really resonate unless you've had some degree of successful, parental relationships or experiences. And, we all have had, I think, to some degree, most of us have had some degree of positive experience, but also, we're all human. We all have issues, and it breaks down. And there's times where our family lets us down. There's times everyone at some point lets us down, and we have to kind of become at some point our own guardian. And so there's this idea that we're created in God's image, and I kind of want to get across in this book, there's this phenomenon of us seeing ourselves, but also realizing that there's this intersection of this idea of being seen that overlaps with God, our self-image, self-love, parental love, all these ways that we really feel known to ourselves and know our value in a powerful, potent way. And so the name of the book's going to be called Seen. And I want to really explore the depth of what that word means to me. And so it's not just about being physically seen or, just visually seen. It contains much more spiritual substance, that I really feel like defines the nature of mental health. Because I think mental health is really spiritual health. And where one ends, one begins is really, I think, quite arbitrary, to tell you the truth. Because ultimately, our sense of reality, our sense of definition, our sense of value really comes from this awareness within ourselves of who I am. It goes into the deepest questions that we have that by themselves are very intimidating to most people, honestly. When I meet people and I go into my typical Josh, like deep, nerdy philosopher talk, it's funny. There's times where it's very, very, people are just looking at me strange, like, what are we doing? And there's times where it's like, there's a look of excitement, like what are we doing? Like this, like it's, what's happening? This is awesome. It's a great conversation. And so it's weird how if you come through a certain topic with a certain angle, people really get, constrained. They feel not at liberty to really, feel seen. And yet, if you come at a topic from a certain other angle, it's exciting. And the talk of mental health and even spirituality, a lot of it can be esoteric, can be used in words that no one really, like, unless you're in the field that you know. And so being able to communicate deeper concepts and deep things in a way that hopefully the average person can follow along and kind of accidentally find themselves thinking on a very deep level and be more caught in the excitement of discovering their value and exploring their value. And really, essentially, this book is, I'm exploring these ideas myself. These are ideas that, have been I've kind of gone through a lot. And so, but a lot of times when I say these things and write them down, there are things that, well, it's really exciting for me because sometimes I'm putting one foot in front of the other as a writer and kind of having an idea, and I'm going in a direction, not fully knowing where I'm going. And as I cross certain territory, I get very excited because I'm like, wow, I've never put this together quite this way. And different areas of myself and my understanding of things kind of map together and link together. And it's really exciting. I feel in the process of writing that so much of who I am is being covered and recovered and explored, and I'm getting so much out of the process just as being kind of like a reader of my own stuff. It'll come out of me, and I'll go back and rewrite it or do it, and it's really exciting when you are like, I don't even remember writing this down. It's like the territory is familiar, but you haven't gone through it enough to quite link the different areas together and feel yourself being integrated. And it's really exciting for me, because I feel like there's some really potent things being said that I haven't really heard people say in a similar way. And so these passages that I'm writing, these pages that I'm writing are very, very they're very powerful for me, but I think they'll be powerful for a lot of different people. And I'm hoping that the idea behind this book is that I want every page to be relatively short, because I don't want people to be, I feel like psychologically when we see so many words on a page, it dilutes the meaning of the words. And so I intentionally want to write in a large font where the individual passages, when people look at a page, they're not intimidated by how much is on there, but there's a kind of unspoken understanding that whatever I have written on every page is simple enough to understand, and if in a very short period of time. So if there is any demand placed on the individual who's reading it, it's not too demanding. It's not just like you got to go back over 10 pages and reread. It's just one page, a few paragraphs, on to the next idea. And I think a lot of different people will have different pages that will stand out and that'll be of different spiritual nutrition. I feel like there's certain areas that when I mention things, they're adjacent to areas that I really, really am excited about. But I feel like there are certain areas I have to touch on. I feel like that's going to be important because naturally there's just things that are in the proximity of what I'm trying to communicate that I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but I also have to have enough self-awareness that some people their experience may be a little different than from my perspective, and I'd like to touch on a few things, and so to maximize my reach with what I'm saying, I don't want people to tune out the things that I have to say because their experience is a little different. But that's something that I'm really this is something that I'm really, really passionate about. I feel like it's one of the best things that I've ever done, and I'm looking forward to maybe even making a very, very reduced kind of pamphlet, so I can kind of be more of a mental health activist with this thing. And so even though there'll be a full-length one, I think my heart wants to make a version of it that's very it's a lot more accessible, a lot more quick to the point. So that's not sure if I'll totally do that, but that's kind of the idea that I'm playing with right now. The idea too with what I have to say with this book is that I also want to communicate a lot of these concepts with music, and so the idea is that there'll be a book and an album of songs that kind of coincides with the actual book itself, and so and it's coincides. I mean, there'll be different. It's different mediums and platforms, kind of different messages, but a genuine or a general overlap. So that my message as an artist and a writer will have a sort of commonality to it, at least right now. So. So that's what's been. So that's what. I just made a weird noise. Okay. So that's what has been going on the book front. Been working on new tunes, but kind of right now been focusing on that and kind of getting that rolled in a direction. It's been kind of it's felt good to begin to really feel the momentum happening with that. And honestly, man, like something that I've been working on as an individual has really been allowing myself kind of the ability to not have to feel like omniscient with my own internal world. Like when I talk with people and when I go out and wherever I go, I put a lot of pressure on myself sometimes to I don't know, feel like I have to have a perfect representation of who I am and my thoughts sometimes. And I realize that sometimes it's okay to just not know exactly how I feel about something. And then put one foot in front of the other, instead of putting one foot in my mouth. If I get too ahead of myself with anything, that's when I really run into problems. And just kind of like just chilling out, man, and realizing that I can be free to just process things at a speed of comfort and enjoy the process of just being a human being that is kind of in process and in becoming. And I don't know, I've put a lot of pressure on myself of trying to be sometimes a person who's so put together that, I don't know, when you force that sort of awareness of yourself, you stifle yourself. It's almost like we know more than we can possibly articulate at any given moment. And if we're trying to just think we have to have a perfect representation of everything we are at once, we're going to like stifle and, I don't know, constipate our personality. I mean, there's a real magic to you just being and realizing that people aren't going to fully get you at any moment. That's okay. You're not going to fully get someone else. And the more you're aware, at any given moment, the more we can embrace the process, it's weird. I never like it when I meet someone and I see that they are so like easily confused and easily misunderstanding. I'm able to tolerate it, but I realize that that's not what I want to be. I want to be someone who is freeing to other people. When I'm around them or around anybody, I'm a freeing presence. And it starts with being a kind of a freeing, having a free and kind of a freeing ecosystem within myself to where I can be at ease of shifting gears at any given moment with anything. And I really feel like I'm sure I've made this point before, but our identity, the concept of identity is so weird. Like I feel like we're so attached to certain ideas of ourselves that many times it is the very thing that hinders us from being a full expression of who we are. To me, identity isn't a certain archetype that we're so, or a certain personality that we're so this and that's it. To me, our identity is this transmission of being that we're able to access different parts of ourselves and able to have more awareness of different parts of ourselves at any given moment. That there's an ease to who we really are as a person. And I think this goes with everybody. That when we don't have that ease, we feel forced into a rigid representation, and that it's ultimately repressive, and people can feel like the disjointed energy of trying to. It's like there's this false confidence, and there's this like unfriendly dimension that people can easily become when they feel like they have to stay into this one mode, or they don't know how to actually access these other modes. And I think if you're able to be yourself and you're able to access different parts of yourself and have that ease, you actually help bring that out of other people. You actually are able to, with your presence, be a person who people feel they can be more dimensional around you. And yeah, there's times where you do want to be just one person. You do want to be kind of like, or be one dimension of yourself, at least for a period of time. I mean, I even just being like a silly, kind of person goofing off. It's like I feel like still at any moment you want to retain the ability to be serious, but you also at any moment you're serious retain the ability to goof off. Because you can't take yourself too serious, or people don't really trust you. They're like, something's too harsh with this person. And also a person who's just too like silly all the time, that kind of gets annoying. But someone who has kind of like a two-way thinking, at any moment it feels like you could have either or, and it's actually nice to be around. It's refreshing. But so those are some thoughts. I'm kind of probably going to start a second podcast that's going to reboot things. I definitely feel like I've learned a lot in the process of being a podcaster, and I don't think that I know that I didn't really think things through with a lot of aspects of this. I've just kind of started and just to try to kind of work on a skill set, work on my ability to communicate with people and communicate my ideas. And a lot of people that have enjoyed it, I've really I enjoy when people really get a lot out of what I say, and I want to maximize that. I I want to also deliver things more quickly and more focused. And so I feel like if I relaunch things in a way that can keep me on a path and can kind of frame things a little differently. I still want to tell my story. I think it's very, very interesting. It's a part of what I'm doing here. But I feel like there is a more accurate way I can portray my ideas by kind of starting a new structure, a new, I don't know, a new medium that I feel like, I don't know, I can really, really communicate more in a more concise way. And so, I mean, I really, at this point right now in my career with a lot of different things, what I want is to communicate a lot in very, very short chunks. And so, even if it's not a podcast, a new podcast, I want to develop more content that is short and sweet. I want to develop things that are a lot more accessible, a lot more impactful, I think. Because again, I got to factor in the average person and the bandwidth they have up here. Most people don't have time to really listen to a long, demanding podcast about life and stuff. Some people do, some people like that. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people, they need it in 30 seconds. They need it in a minute or whatever, you know. And so I like the long form thing. Gonna do more of that in measure. But I really feel like communicating in different ways, just it helps every format. It helps me kind of just process and release ideas and know what people really want to hear and what resonates with people. Sometimes I have great ideas to myself and then I share them with other people and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. You know, it's hit or miss sometimes, you know, but sometimes there's things you'll mention and you don't realize just how much people appreciate it and really resonate with something. And so learning more and more about my own audience and learn about what I have to say that really people get a lot of and need to hear is something that I'm ready to be more open about and kind of be a little more fluid with how I do things and how I'm releasing content and releasing everything that I do. So I do want to experiment with if I have to put everything kind of down to a more simple way, it'd be I want things to contain more life and not just more information, because ultimately I can spend 30 minutes going into like some brilliant idea, or I could have someone feel that idea in 30 seconds or a minute, and that could be 30 minutes worth of energy and just in one short clip. So it's not about just being able to be a linguist or whatever, or an orator. It's about communicating, and sometimes the most effective way is short and sweet and creative, and whatever way I can articulate life, not just life as an observer, but as a participant, as someone who is, and there's a huge difference there, because the library has thousands of books, and yet life itself, my screen went out. I like using this as a light, or my screen went out, and so it's like I like using it as a light to my anyway. Information is not life, but life contains so much more information that sometimes the art and medium of speech or books or whatever you want to call it is good for like zoning in on something and really understanding it. But I feel like the modern mind today is kind of irritated at too much words and too much kind of left brain logic. And so me as a communicator, I have to tap into being a lot more right brain, kind of imaginative, even emotional or narrative based, or I don't know, just animated with life as a personality and as a I don't know. I feel like that really is what brings people in to not just understand, but to feel, to not just merely be like a listener or a viewer, but an experiencer of what I'm saying. I feel like when you feel that delivered by someone, it goes beyond what they say. And so I've realized that in my own life and what I'm doing, I have to make that official jump into being what I would call a fully dimensional person, and not just be a writer or an artist that is doing it in this dimensions over here. I feel like I've said this before that self-development to me is the ultimate art form. I should be the totality of what I create. I'm excited to share with you guys this exciting way of looking at the world that I've really just begun to share. And yet everything that I want to share, I hope to simplify our lives so that it's about really embracing just the simplicity of being, and for us to target our thoughts and our ways that we think about mental health and spirituality in a way that where there is complexity, it's good complexity. It's like music or something like that. It's like or any sort of technology. Complexity is something that should kind of in some ways be unconscious, that should kind of recede into the background, and all we feel is the functionality of something. And I think ultimately the functionality of who we are as people is it's rooted in very simple things. And looking forward to getting more into that with you guys. So looking forward to simplifying things, getting creative, having some wacky ideas, sharing with y'all some cool artistic ways of looking at life and looking at consciousness, looking at love, looking at everything. And I think there being no end to it is kind of the point.